Hey guys, this is Jamil. We actually lost the beginning of this show, so when the actual recording starts, it will just jump right into our discussion of Middlewest. If we sound a little bit low energy, it's because we had to do several takes for this episode. So enjoy this show, and we'll try to do better next time. Thanks. So Amanda, what are we reading today?
So I asked us to check out Middlewest, which is a book from Image Comics that started coming out in the fall of 2018. It is still ongoing as far as I can tell. The story is by Skottie Young, who we usually know as a variant cover artist. The art is by Jorge Corona. The colors are by Jean-Francois Beaulieu. Nate Picos did the lettering. And I wanted to give a shout out to Carrie Hall on design, just because I feel like this is a book where it was very superficial. Like I saw the cover and said, "Ooh, yeah." Like the logo and the overall everything gave me a really professional, cohesive, creative vibe. And so I just want to acknowledge that, perhaps it's worth it to have an extra person on design, making sure that the cover of your book sells. The synopsis, according to Image, the lands between the coasts are vast, slow to change, and full of hidden magics. Mistakes have been made, and in this new ongoing series, an unwitting adventurer searches for answers to quell a coming storm that knows his name. This is the story of Abel, a young boy who must navigate an old land in order to reconcile his family's history. Which, I mean, like, that's like useless. That's a horrible synopsis. Just to start with, can you even estimate a better synopsis for us? Something a little bit more representative of what the actual book is?
Boy goes on an adventure in redneck Narnia.
Redneck Narnia, yeah.
Or white trash eyes, whichever one works for you. One or the other,
I mean, white trash Oz will immediately conjure the image of the tornado, which I think is perfect. That's spot on.
Thank you.
It's funny because I was going to say it's funny because in literature, one of my favorite genres of story is actually like the traveling, like the boy goes on an adventure story.
Right.
Or like the boy goes to school story. So like I don't know, I could find a few examples, but this should be squarely in my genre, the sort of like magical fantasy realism, emotional story, boy traveling, world building. Overall, didn't really feel like it worked though. What was your feel?
Amanda, let's talk about ham-fisted metaphors, why don't we?
Okay, yeah, we can talk about ham-fisted metaphors.
Look, I'm gonna tell you something. All that stuff you just said, right, brings me to a point. And I think I've said this before, right? We make fun of a lot of superheroes. We read a lot of superhero comics, but we also make fun of them a lot for being tropey and kind of the same a lot of the times. I mean, I'm be honest with you. We don't read a lot of independent comics. It's the same shit. I mean, the tropes are different. You know what I'm saying? But like, it's the same type of shit. Like, this is no different than Miniature Jesus or I Kill Giants or any other shit that we might have read with like this magical realism, like metaphor disguised as something else. Like, the book is not terrible. Like I want to make that clear. Like, it's not poorly written, right? But if I get your central metaphor the second it's introduced, I don't know if that's a good story, right?
Yes, and I think it's interesting that you bring up I Kill Giants because it's a very similar metaphor, and unfortunately that makes it very easy to compare the books, and I think the winner is obvious in that comparison on
Yes.
almost every dimension.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's like I don't want to be too harsh on this book. I don't want to like rip it to shreds, but like I just felt a collective meh. Like it's good. It's well written enough. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like I didn't feel the need to continue to read this. Right? Like I think I got it. I'm sure it probably goes
Yes.
some crazy places, but like I got it right. You know what I'm saying? Abuse begets abuse, and like like if your parents abuse you, eventually you might become an abuser, and you have to constantly check yourself, so that thing won't happen. Am I off? Is that not what this is about, or am I wrong?
No, no, you're absolutely right. And I think it's difficult to miss that point. And unlike I Kill Giants, I didn't really get the vibe that this was like a young adult book. So I don't know that that is a message that, I mean, if you're an adult reading a story about a child trying to overcome his abuse so that he doesn't take his anger and rage out on others, that's a story for teenagers to read and learn from, not a story for the quintessential 45-year-old adult white male who's reading comic books. But this doesn't feel like a young adult book. It feels like it was a book that was marketed like to me.
So Skottie Young is normally an artist, right?
I believe so.
So is this just a case of a writer of like a writer's like first time like gig? You know what I'm saying? Is this a case of like his first crack at writing his own bit story for a comic book company?
Um,
It kind of feels like that in a weird way. Like that's the thing. It's written well enough to like I would read more about Skottie Young that isn't this story if this is truly like one of his like first. I don't know. Can you do we have his bibliography by any chance?
um, yeah, I've pulled it up. He did, I mean, in addition to a lot of variant covers, um, the big thing that he did was the adaptation of the Oz series as a graphic novel.
Holy shit! That
Um,
makes sense all of a sudden.
not only does it make sense, but now that I think about it, it makes me even more disappointed that this book is just white trash Oz because it's like, did you not get enough of that? Um, I
maybe we should read his Oz series instead. That sounds interesting. That actually sounds more interesting.
um yeah, no, it does. It looks like he also I mean, this is just a Wikipedia that I went to, so I can't actually tell what he was doing art on and what he was writing, but I know he was writing I Hate Fairyland.
Mm.
Um,
So this is his wheelhouse then, huh?
yeah, this should be what he's good at.
Wow. Again, I don't think the book is bad. I just think it's okay. It's just okay, Amanda. It's just look okay. So let's talk about something more interesting. The art. I really like the art. The art is really good.
Yes. Um, there's the art does so much work. And also the colors are really beautiful, and um, I liked the style of the lettering.
Right.
Um, I think there were a lot of places where there wasn't explicitly like an outline
Mm-hmm.
around the text bubble, and I feel like that matched the artwork really, really well.
Right. Right.
Um, there were tons of background details in the art that I was loving too, which I was hoping would become like story points. Like the glowing pink liquid, like they're
Yes.
batteries or something. Like what? That's cool. Tell me about that. Oh, but it's not in the story.
Well, there's a lot of things that I wish they kind of display up front, and I get why you don't. You know what I'm saying? You want, but like I think there's
Mm,
a balance. But There's too much weird shit not for an explanation.
Um,
If that make any sense, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why is there a talking fox? Like there.
I agree. I think the reason why it bothers us, because we've read before, we've talked before about enjoying books that have immersive world building
Yes.
and enjoying books where it's very weird. But I think the issue here is that because this is a boy traveling story and sort of a fish out of water story, when something weird
Check.
happens, we as the reader don't know if it's normal within the world
Right.
or not,
Right.
because the boy responds the same way we do, which is like, wow, what is that thing? And because we don't know, it doesn't work.
Yeah, like there's a difference, right? Like you say, it's the Barry thing. There's background details that tell you that this is a little different than like a normal like Midwest America. But then you start throwing like trolls and fucking crowman like at you, and you not and talking fossils, and there's no explanation. Speaking of which, speaking of shit that's not explained, and like I might just keep reading for this, right? I'm gonna skip to the end. I'm gonna skip to the end, okay? So when what's the woman name that goes inside his mind? Whose circus it is?
Maggie something.
Okay,
She had it. Maggie was the nickname.
all right. So when she goes in her mind, when he goes into when she goes into his mind, right? You see his
Yes.
mom. You see his dad. You finally see how his moms look, right?
Right.
Why is his mom a black woman? Or was I not not looking at that right?
um,
Not that there's
I mean,
anything wrong with that. But that boy don't look mixed.
yeah. I mean, I guess it was kind of a why not? Um,
You see, I don't like that. Like I understand. Look, I'm saying this as a black person.
I feel like she could read. I feel like she could read more as Latina, but
Even
it's
then,
difficult to it's difficult to tell the exaggerated features versus like, you know, features
even
that are meant to be like cartoony versus ethnic. But
even then, that boy ain't ethnic. He ain't spicy at all. Latino or black. He look.
hey, we read Incognito. We know that, you know,
Okay.
sometimes it doesn't matter.
Okay. Now peep this. I'm saying this as a black person who believe representation like really matters, right? I don't
This is
pers-
not representation.
Yeah, I don't personally like when they do shit like this. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Like that does not count as a black character.
well, not just that. It's just like if you're gonna have, like, I like for shit to make sense. Okay, I just like shit to make sense. Whether that's a detriment to black people or not, the black characters or not, I just want it to make sense, right? Like I remember like the whole thing with like Johnny Storm being black, right? I was like, well, they just go like, no, it's gonna make sense, and they kind of make it make sense. They just make one of them adopted. That's from the shitty Fantastic Four movie, but like it has to make sense. Like, you know, if you look that white, just have her be white. She doesn't have to be black just because you want to put a black character in here somewhere. Like, you know what I'm saying? She didn't have to be black. Like, maybe there's an explanation for it. Maybe he is supposed to be passing, but that boy don't look passing. Like, even in Incognito, right? He's passing, but you could kind of tell he's black. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can still kind of tell that, like the character Incognito is black, but you can see how people can see him as white. That little boy ain't mixed. And like, if you just made her black just because you know you feel like it's progressive, that's not the right type of progressiveness. Because like you're operating from like a halfway real like it's about tornadoes and talking foxes, right? But a part of this story is about like realism, like it's kind of like magical realism. Your brain tell you that not right. That don't make you racist. They tell you like, hey, that boy white, his mama shouldn't be black. Just make it make sense. If you're gonna have the boy be mixed, make him look mixed. Do that make any sense? I'm just rambling. Do that
It does make sense. Um, and I agree that it's really difficult in a fantasy story to sort of balance things that are grounded versus things that can sort of be fanciful versus just like deciding that you can just make shit random and call it magic.
right?
This is one of those. I'm trying to remember. There was a book where we had a similar feeling where it was like if more about the book was working, maybe it wouldn't bother us.
Right.
But like almost nothing about the book is working, and this is just an obvious example.
Like then like to me it's a cop out at the same time, right? You could have just made them black, and the daddy could have been black, and the mama could have been black. It felt like it's like a weird stopgap. But we could be wrong. Maybe she's meant to be black. Maybe she's meant to be white, and I'm just looking at this lady wrong.
Well, unfortunately, we only have like the one page where
Right.
the mom shows up. And I mean, she's sort of, in talking about comic book tropes, she's sort of fridged.
Yeah.
She's out of the story for the purpose of driving the plot.
Then like Amanda, let's be real. Let's say she's supposed to be black. So you just you gonna make the black parent be the parent that abandons their child, cause that's not a good look either. If you
Yeah.
again, we only read these 6 issues, but I'm only going off these 6 issues. All this might be explained in the comic book going forward, but in these 6 issues, I find it odd. Okay, that was a weird 5-10 minute tangent to go on. So, what do you think of these characters? What do you think of Abel? And do you think
So,
there's a Kane somewhere?
um, I mean, given the tendency towards tropes, I feel like there has to be. Now that you've mentioned it,
Right.
um, I I thought he was fine.
Hmm.
Um, I I mean, like I felt definitely at the beginning, I felt his frustration, about trying to do things right, about, like trying to deliver the newspapers, doing things well almost all of the time, and then just getting absolutely reamed like the one time you make a mistake.
Right.
And just having, you know, I feel like most adults have met someone in their life who can go all the way like that so fast. Like you do one thing wrong and suddenly they're like, you've never done anything right in your whole life. And you go, hey, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Right.
Or like specifically I have a relative who, will say, oh, like if you go more than a week without calling, suddenly they say, oh, you never call me anymore. And it's like, it's been 8 days instead of 7. Um, so I feel I really resonated with that dynamic, but I think it's more that I relate to the things that are happening to him and less that I relate to him as a character.
Okay. Okay. What? Well, I will say I think I like his Fox friend a lot better than I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was kind of wish the story was about him a little bit,
Same.
cause he seems way more interesting.
I almost wonder, how did Abel ever do anything cool enough to get a fox friend?
Right.
Is kind of where I'm coming at. And the other characters, the other human characters, don't seem to have pets, so it's a little bit unclear. Like, is it certain? Can other people hear the fox talk? Can other people see it even?
Well, look, I asked the same question, but it seemed like he talked to the robot. So I think everybody can see and hear him. I think,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
I'm not really for sure.
I mean, that's one of those questions that I feel like would be cleared up if we kept reading.
We know what. He does talk to Maggie. He does talk to Maggie when he freaks out at the end.
Okay. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Absolutely.
So let me ask you: Do you mind that it ended on the cliffhanger at the 6 issues? Because it feel like nothing is wrapped up, right? Not even a little bit, like anything.
I mean, I think that's fine if, if you're telling a story, it's allowed to have acts and you're allowed to, um, of course, end a volume on a cliffhanger. Um, I just I had kind of already checked out and we get to the end and it's a cliffhanger and I'm like, of course. Um, but not a cliffhanger enough to make me want to keep reading.
Mm,
Maybe the cliff needed to be higher.
right. I did buy volume 2, but I bought that like a few days ago before we
Okay.
talked, because it did end on the cliffhanger. I'm just like, am I supposed to read the second volume of this? Did we discuss this? Because this is really unsatisfying. Even though, like you, I didn't like it that much.
Mm,
I hate for shit to end like that.
yeah.
Um. Okay, so let me see. What do you think of the dad?
Um,
I got thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
okay. So, I mean, obviously we're not supposed to like the dad. Um, I mean, I also don't like the dad, but I feel like I feel like I don't really understand the dad. Um,
Right.
yeah.
I I'm getting to
Okay.
something. I think this part is the most interesting through line in the book, not character, but it's because there seems like they setting the dad up for some type of redemption arc,
Mm-hmm.
and I find that super interesting. That like it seems like he's not a complete shitbag, despite us seeing him be a complete shitbag.
Yeah.
But there seems to be like sympathetic qualities that are supposed to come out. Like maybe if we keep reading, and if this is a story about forgiving like your abuser and your like abuser repenting for what they might have done to you, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like as far as like physical abuse, that's a very powerful story. That is grown up. You know what I'm saying? That is like that thing that like I would grasp onto. But as of right now, there's not enough of that to want me to keep reading. If this story is ultimately about like forgiveness and reckoning, that could be interesting.
Um, yeah, I like you drawing attention to that because it's very easy to just sort of forget about the dad as sort of a villain just to drive the story along, but he definitely has the potential to be more than that. It's hard to see.
Right, 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 right. So, what else? What do you just think about the world in general? Do you find the world interesting at all? Besides the battery thing, do you find like the Crow Man and the trolls and all this stuff mixed with like what seems to be like I don't know Midwest flair? Like what do you think of all this?
Um, I I want to say I feel like it's dangerously close to steampunk,
Oof.
which I don't really enjoy usually. Um,
Hmm.
I feel like it's very close to being like I was trying to say this before. You can't just make stuff up randomly and then say, oh, well, the world's magic. Um, and I'm getting kind of a sense of that. I don't feel like there's underlying logic. Like I feel like if I broke into Skottie Young's house, that there wouldn't be multiple notebooks outlining what all of this stuff means.
Hmm.
Um, I'm trying to figure out what it is that feels shallow about it to me.
Can I take a
Yeah,
crack at it?
please.
maybe it's the fact that it's technologically advanced and magic at the same time, and he can't decide on which one he wants to use.
Mm,
No, no, because that was my issue.
I mean that might
That
be
like
part of it.
he couldn't pick a John. He couldn't pick a genre, right? Because like, oh, okay, like, because like when you first said before you see the talking fox, right? Like, okay, this world is a bit technologically advanced in weird ways. Okay, they got this pink stuff that seems to be like these like floating like airships, like blimps. You know what I'm saying, for fuel. There's a robot that runs off this stuff that also has like advanced AI, but there's also magic. So like it seemed like it's both, and like it seems like he didn't know which one he wants to go with per se.
I feel like that. No, I feel like
Maybe.
that may be part of it. Um, and it feels it feels old and new at the same time. Um,
Right.
I mean, specifically, I mean, like this kid has literally a paper route where he delivers the newspapers by hand from his bicycle.
Yeah.
At the same time that we have robots that operate off of liquid pink batteries and talking animals and allusions to older magic. Um, it just feels a little like he threw everything in.
Mm. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe this book is designed. Maybe he threw in all the shit that we supposed to
Mm,
like, but it doesn't work for us. Like maybe it just tries a little too hard. Maybe that's what it is, right? Like I know this is stuff I'm supposed to like,
yeah.
but it's just off.
Um,
Maybe he's like too hard to please. Maybe.
okay, actually, here's a creative thought that I can relate to. And I just throw this out there because it could be me recognizing this in his work that you know when something reminds you of your own weaknesses and it like kind of drives you crazy. Um,
Right.
so uh, sometimes if you get an opportunity to do a really big project and you want to make every aspect of it like the coolest, best idea you could ever come up with,
Right.
it's almost paralyzing and none of the ideas get to breathe.
Mm.
So, like, the
Right. Okay,
example
that makes
I'm thinking
sense.
of is that when I go to choreograph a dance, I can't put in all of my hardest, most impressive moves in a row because you won't see
Mhm.
them all and it won't, like, you have to let each idea that you're showing breathe. But
Mhm.
sometimes if I'm trying to put together like a 30-second thing so that I can put it like on Facebook or Instagram or something to like sell a class, I try to put in like cool thing, cool thing, cool thing, cool thing, cool thing, and I try to cram it all in and then it just looks bad. Um, so I feel
Mhm.
like maybe that's what's going on here is maybe he felt like he couldn't risk not including every single one of his favorite story ideas and just absolutely
Right.
worked the thing to death trying to get every cute idea he ever had into one story. And then that kind of like I was saying, like you need to stand in one place and then jump. You can't just keep jumping the whole time, then it doesn't look you don't notice that you're jumping.
Right.
So I feel like this is maybe an example of that. Trying hard.
Mhm. Trying hard to please. When you try to please everybody, you please nobody.
Yeah. Poor guy,
Okay.
poor
Oh man,
guy.
I think. Oh, yeah. Look. On that note, I think we're done. And this is probably gonna be a shorter show than usual. Amanda, would you recommend this book to people?
Probably not. If someone was
Okay.
interested in this type of a story, I feel like I would recommend I Kill Giants instead. If someone was
Mm. Mm.
interested in this style of art, um, I'd say this actually reminds me of Chew a little bit. Is that Rob Guillory? Um,
I think.
just double checking. Yeah. Um, yeah, Rob Guillory. So if someone was like, "Oh, I really like this style of art," I would say either find more work by Jorge Corona or look up Chew, and you can enjoy this sort of artwork and again, sort of like a weird fantasy world. But this specific book, I'm not convinced unless it grows in later volumes that um, I'm not convinced that you need to read it. Sorry.
Wow.
I think it's the first
I
time I've
definitely
ever
wouldn't
come out
miss.
and just been like, no, I would not recommend this.
There was Promethea.
Mm, that was different. That was
the,
different. That
the
was
famous.
like, this book shouldn't even exist.
Wow. 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 One day, I'm gonna make you read the rest of that for this show just to be hateful. No, I'm just playing. All right then. Like I wouldn't recommend it. No, I take that back. I might. This is something I would give to my son.
Okay.
I think stories like this, like, because again, I don't think it's. You know what it reminds me of, and like this might hurt a little bit for you. It reminds me a bit of the Dark Crystal. In fact, it reminds me a lot of those like 80 kids movies.
Yeah, I believe that.
Like, no, like none of them are particularly like masterpieces for like an older audience. But if it feels like if you get the right subsection of people, you might get a fan base going, right? Because you see the original Dark
Hmm.
Crystal, it's okay, but like it's grown in the years since, and that feels like something like this. Like I give it to my son. It's kind of mediocre. It's kind of okay, but it's not bad. Like, hey, here you go. You might enjoy this story because you haven't read as many stories as your dad. This one might work for you. This one might work for you a little bit better than it does for me.
That's fair.
All right. So Amanda, we are doing an extra episode this month. What are we reading next week for Halloween?
So we were a bit lost, and you just threw out that we should look into Lock and Key, which surprisingly neither of us have
Right.
read. Um, there's
Yes.
also, I mean, there is the potential to check out the TV series, but I mean, we're just gonna maybe just start with the first arc.
Let's start with the first arc. Do you want to look at the TV series, even 1 or 2 episodes, maybe? I leave it completely up to you.
I'm gonna try to, I think. Surprisingly, this is one that my parents recommended the show to me. Yeah, Mr.
Really?
and Mrs. Comey actually watched all of Lock and Key without their daughter calling them up and saying this is a great comic book show. Um, so I guess that's an endorsement. I don't know. My parents watch almost anything, so
I envy them. I think when you get that age, you just don't care anymore. Like, yeah, whatever. They gone. They probably retired or close to retirement. They're just like, yeah, sure, Lock and Key. So yeah, so that's what we're reading next week is Lock and Key, written I think by Stephen King's son, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's true. So nice little spooky story for us. So with that, I think we're done this week. Amanda, if they want to talk to us about ham-fisted allegory, what could they reach us?
we are on Twitter as Comic Book Club 52. They could send us an email,
Hmm.
comicbookclub52 at gmail. And we're also on Facebook as the Comic Book Club, mostly just to make it a little bit easier to share the link. We don't really spam you with updates or polls or other engagement searching activity. We're pretty low key. Respectful,
Right, right,
respectful of
right.
your time as listeners.
Exactly. So with that, I guess we are done. Feel pain, and we are out.